Good evening and welcome to the Adams County Children's Advocacy Center Brighter Tomorrow Speaker Series. The Adams County Children's Advocacy Center is a local nonprofit organization dedicated to a community where children are safe, families are strong, and child victims of abuse can be children again. The CAC has served the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania community for 17 years and provides family and victim advocacy services after reports of child abuse have been made, as well as coordinating forensic interviews, the multidisciplinary investigative team, and we provide intensive child abuse prevention and mental health education programs in school districts in Adams County, as well as support for child and adult abuse survivors, mental health therapy services, and groups. The Brighter Tomorrow Speaker Series is intended to bring discussion of topics that help children, adolescents, their caregivers, and the general community with prevention, awareness, and coping strategies. Held the second Thursday of each month and featuring a different topic each time, registration is free on our website at kidsagainstcac.org, Eventbrite, or our Facebook page. Our housekeeping details: the presentation is suitable for parents, caregivers, and the general community, but is not geared towards children. A question and answer session will be held at the conclusion of the presentation, so please submit questions through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. This evening, we are so excited to welcome Renee Winters, a Certified Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, who will discuss child and adolescent mental health. Renee is a graduate of Vanderbilt University and is employed with Gettysburg Pediatrics. She has over 20 years of experience serving the Gettysburg community and is currently pursuing an additional certification in pediatric mental health. She is a mom to 4 kids and multiple pets and enjoys hiking and backpacking to maintain her own mental and physical health. Thank you for joining us tonight, and welcome, Renee.
So, like Jennifer said, my name is Renee. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner at Gettysburg Pediatrics here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I have 4 kids of my own that are in the school district here in Gettysburg. The Children's Advocacy Center had asked if I'd participate in this series. Child adolescent mental health is obviously a growing concern in our community with our patients. We're actually in the midst of having a worsening mental health crisis amongst adults, and our kids and our adolescents are not immune. They're actually showing increasing signs of anxiety, depression, mood disorders, behavior issues, and withdrawal. Our kids and teens are reporting feelings of increased loneliness, sadness, worry, anxiety, and depression, and they're at an all-time high. Incidences of self-harm and suicidal ideations are increasing. So these are the issues that we know we're having. But why are our kids struggling so much? What is different about the world that our kids are currently growing up in that was different from when we grew up? Why are these things changing for our kids? Our kids today are facing pressures and stresses that we did not have to deal with when we were their age. We have school shootings, gun violence, bullying, isolation, gender identity issues, social media pressures, cyberbullying, and perceived societal norms that flood our kids daily. The studies show that girl self-worth actually starts to plummet at age 8 at this point. And girl-to-girl bullying or horizontal bullying, AKA mean girl drama, actually starts as young as kindergarten now and really affects our girls' mental health. We watch our kids struggle as their parents and as their caregivers, and we want to know, how can we help? What can we do? As a mom myself, and obviously as a provider to these kids and teens, I worry for my own kids as well as the patients that I see in my office every day. It can seem so overwhelming to help our kids in crisis or even to know where to begin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss some CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, or cognitive behavioral triangle, exercises and methods that we can actually do at home to help our kids, to help our teens, and to even help ourselves. And these things actually really work. I like to think of our health and wellness as a toolbox, and we're a work in progress. And the more tools we have in our toolbox, the more successful that we're going to be. So what kind of tools do we have to help our kids? What kind of tools do we have available to help ourselves? And what kinds of tools do we have to help our kids have access to? So the first thing is supportive family, friends, teachers, even their bosses, guidance counselors at school, our school assistance programs, our providers, counseling and therapy services, the CBT exercises we're going to talk about at home. Medications are part of this, and most importantly, us. So what can we do? The first thing we can do is we can listen and we can be patient. We have to be ready to listen and look for our moment to be able to help our kids. Being patient and understanding that what our kids are dealing with are not the same things that we dealt with as kids. Remembering that our stressors as adults are not the same for our kids. So what might be stressing out your 5-year-old, your 6-year-old, your 8-year-old, your 14-year-old may not seem like a big deal to us as grownups, but they are very big deals to them. So the first thing for us to do is to listen and to be patient and understanding to what they're experiencing and how they're perceiving their stresses and their anxieties. We want to make sure that we don't trivialize what they're feeling and what they're experiencing. We don't want to trivialize their emotions and their stresses. We want to remember that they're important and they're important to them, and be really careful not to dismiss them. So some of the at-home CBT or the cognitive behavioral therapy things that we can do, and basically kind of how I'm going to go through and talk about this is how I really talk to my patients and my families in my office when I'm seeing them for anxiety, depression, mood issues, anxiety, they're having trouble with bullying, mean girls, fitting in, identity issues, all of those types of things. So this is the same advice that I really give to my patients and their families, and I use in my own home as well. So a lot of the things we can do at home, the CBT stuff, you're going to do as sort of the first pyramid, first thing in the toolbox is what we're going to do. So workbooks are awesome. You can get workbooks on Amazon, any book site at all. I tend to be a little biased towards Amazon because it's fast and it's cheap. But there's a lot of really great workbooks out there that I use in my office and I use at home as well. Anxiety workbooks for kids are really, really good. They are geared towards various age groups. So you can have anxiety workbooks for kids that are geared towards kids in preschool, elementary school, up through the teenage and adolescent years. One of my favorite is called the Anxiety Workbook for Kids. It has a picture of a tomato tree on the front. It's so, so good. They make CBT doodle books, workbooks for teen and adolescents. They make art books and things like that. And they're really, really helpful because what they do is kids can actually sit down and do a lot of it on their own or in conjunction with their school counselor, with their therapist, or with you as their adult. And it really kind of sometimes helps tease out some of those worries that they're having or some of those problems or issues that they're having that they're dealing with. Obviously, sometimes they're very known issues or traumas or triggers, but oftentimes kids have a real problem verbalizing what's actually going on that's making them feel the way that they're feeling. And so a lot of times these CBT workbooks are really, really a good tool for kids to be able to work through, like I said, on their own or with their adult. Journals are also a really, really good thing, especially for our kids who like to draw or doodle or write out their words, whether it's in forms of poems, paragraphs, sentences, song lyrics, whatever, but they're really, really good. And there's a lot of things you can do with journals. The biggest thing for us as their adults is to respect their privacy. You can have kids who use them as worry workbooks. So if you have a kiddo who's really having a tough time with anxiety, stress, they don't want to go to school in the morning, they have a hard time shutting their brain off at night, either they're thinking of all the homework they have to do or the test the next day, or they want to get a good grade, or they're afraid to go to school because they're afraid there's going to be violence or they're going to be bullied on the bus to school. All of those things are so important and cause a lot of the stress and anxiety and issues that our kids have. And to have a worry workbook or a feelings book is really important. It allows them the space and a safe space to write out what they're feeling. And it can be the worries, it can be anger, it can be emotions, it can be sadness. And then whenever they're finished, you can close the book, and it kind of helps train their brain that we're putting our worries to bed. We're putting our madness to bed. We're putting our anger to bed. So they're able to write that out in a safe space, and then actual closing of the book or the journal and putting it away in a safe place for them, whether it's in their bedside drawer, a desk, under their mattress, under their pillow. They're putting their worries, their emotions, their angers away for the night. And it can be part of a good bedtime routine for them to be able to unwind and relax and put their worries, their scary feelings, their anger, their madness away. I've had kids who use it to write down worries and anxieties, And I've had kids who have some more anger issues or behavioral issues, and they actually use it to write down their negative emotions. They use it to write down the things that they're not allowed to say to someone because they would perhaps be hurtful or just angry words or bad words. And so they can use it as more of a feelings or an emotion book to get out their feelings and to vent out their frustrations. And that's a good, healthy coping way to do that. That's a form of CBT. There's a lot of really good apps out there, and I have a lot of them on my phone that I show my patients at work. And again, I use at home too. There's an app called Mindful Nat, as in the bug, GNAT, and that's actually free. And that's geared towards preschool and elementary kids. And that is an app to help for mindfulness. Headspace is one of my favorite apps. It used to be free. It no longer is free. You have to pay for it, but it actually is an app that you check in with every day. It's geared more towards our adolescents and adults, but you check in with it every day and helps gauge where you are. Are you more on the anxiety side? Are you more on the depression or mood issue side? And it provides all of these things we're talking about. The CBT, it gets into breathing, meditation, calming, things like that. It's a really good app to use. Apps tend to be really good for our teens and adolescents because they tend to be more social media based. They want to be more on their phone or their iPad. There's another one that's really good called Calmharm, CALMHARM, and that is an app to use for our kids and adolescents who have a tendency for self-harm. There's an app called NOCD. That's an app that's really good for OCD tendencies and compulsive issues. There's an app called 10%, TENPERCENT, and there's an app called WellTrack. And these are all scientifically based, sound, safe apps that you can use as an adult. You can use it with your kiddo or with your adolescent that are really good and have really good benefits to them. For people that like to listen better, and I think this helps us as parents and caregivers to be able to better help and understand, because one of the best ways we can help our kids and adolescents is educating ourselves. Podcasts and audiobooks are really good, more for helping us as parents and caregivers and the adults in their lives to be able to provide additional resources and to be able to cope ourselves. I'm a really big fan of books, especially for our preschool and elementary age kids who are dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety right now, and even some depression. So there's some really good books out there. I do have a list, and I'm always happy to put these in the chat column later too, to give you the list of them. But some of the really good books, one is called My Body Sends a Signal, helping kids recognize emotions and express feelings. The Little Spot of Emotions books are awesome. I'm Just a Kid, The Boy with Big, Big Feelings. There's a lot of books out there, and I usually suggest to parents, you can hop in on any site, Amazon. Our library system is amazing. Obviously, then that's free of charge. Again, you can utilize your school counselor. They have a lot of amazing books, but these are books that tend to be really geared towards that preschool, elementary school age, especially if you can get it. And if you have a kid who likes dinosaurs, I know we have a book that's one of our favorites called The Grumpy Monkey. Books about dragons, unicorns, fairies. There's, you name the character, there's going to be a book about it that ties into an emotion and how to kind of help teach our kids that emotional self-regulation and coping. Emotional self-regulation and coping is not a skill that we're born with as human beings. It's something we have to develop. It helps lead to us to have an ability to have resilience. And it's something that kids get from watching it being modeled. So being able to model emotional self-regulation and coping is really helpful for our kids. And these books really kind of help us as adults to be able to teach it to our kids and model it, because it's a hard skill for us as adults to have, especially then to be able to teach it to our kids. So a lot of these books are really, really great. And like I said, I'm happy to put them in the chat later if you're interested in knowing what any of them are. So where does our stress come from? Why do we feel stressed? Why do we feel anxious? Why do we get sad and depressed? So our brain and our gut are connected. And that is why if our brain is on overdrive and we're anxious, we're stressed, we're depressed, we're sad, we have those somatic symptoms. We have stomach pains, we get belly aches, we get nauseous, vomiting, diarrhea. We get headaches. We can't sleep. We don't want to eat. Our kids don't want to go to school. They don't want to get out of bed in the morning. They want to sleep too much, or they can't sleep at all. That's that brain and gut connection. And chronic and overstress actually does impact us. So you have a big nerve that runs straight down through. It's called your vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve is important because it actually is what's responsible for disengaging our sympathetic nervous system, best known as our fight or flight response. So when we get anxious, upset, angry, mad, sad, that fight or flight response kicks in and we're flooded with adrenaline and we feel stressed. Short bursts of it are okay. Long-term effects are negative on our health. So what can we do? What can we do for our kids when their sympathetic nervous system is being triggered? You need to kind of stimulate this vagus nerve, which is that big nerve, that gut-brain connection here. And these are kind of the biggest things that you can do every single day at home with your kids. And it's like anything else. It's learning to ride a bike, learning to catch a ball. It's practice, it's exercise, to help our brain and our gut to have this great connection, and to have a healthy nervous system. So some of the biggest things that we can do, breathing. Breathing is the simplest, most effective way that we can calm ourselves down. And I'm a huge proponent at an early age to start teaching our kids to breathe so that they can learn to calm themselves down and regulate their emotions. Even if right now, if you just take one deep breath in through your nose and out your mouth, you automatically feel that you are calmer. That's stimulating that vagus nerve. That's what that's doing. That is pathophysiologic. That's what happens to our body. So breathing, even if you practice it 3 to 5 minutes every day, is so key, because then what happens is that our kids are learning that. It's like learning to ride a bike, learning to catch a ball, learning to walk up and down the stairs. It becomes something that's a part of them. And when they find themselves in a situation where they're anxious, they're really angry, they're mad, they're struggling in a way, they can automatically revert to their coping strategy, their self-regulation. They can do it themselves, which is the goal, right? Our goal is to help our kids learn to emotionally self-regulate and to cope with these stresses that they're feeling. And breathing is the best way to do that. And it's so simple and it doesn't cost anything. So for our older kids, our adolescents, our adults who tend to be a little bit more wanting to be online, there's so many good sites out there on YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, just as long as they're good, reputable sites. So there's breathing for everybody looks different. We all have different styles of breathing and techniques. So I just encourage you to find a breathing style that works for you and one that works for your kiddo. There's a lot of, again, really good books. The ABCs of breathing is awesome, but Breathe Like a Bear is probably my favorite. This one is geared towards your smallest kids the whole way up through adolescence. I have adolescents that use this book. And there's a lot of really, really good breathing techniques in here. One of my favorite is the hot chocolate breath. You have the candle breath. It's just like what it sounds like. Hot chocolate breath. You breathe it in to smell your hot chocolate. Breathe out to cool it off. So Breathe Like a Bear there's actually 30 mindful moments for kids to feel calm and focused anytime, anywhere. I use this example a lot with my own child. One of my 4 kids has a lot of social anxiety. She's always been that way since a toddler. She was the kid that hid between my legs, didn't want to go anywhere new, try anything new, be around new people. So as she's gotten older, and she's on sports teams, she swims, she actually would have such an incredible fight or flight response when she would go to swim. She would actually physically be ill. So that's obviously a problem. So we worked on our breathing. We did our anxiety workbook. We did our CBT books, and we did Breathe Like a Bear. And she found a breathing technique that she likes. We practiced it every single day. So now when she gets up to swim on the starting block, she still feels those butterflies in her belly. She's nervous. She's anxious. She still feels a little bit of that fight or flight, but she's learned to control that enough that she can actually dive in the pool. She's not getting sick. She's not getting ill. We all have different stresses and anxieties. Social anxiety is a more generalized anxiety approach, but the breathing really does work. And these exercises are so awesome that a kid can use it anytime, anywhere. They can be sitting on the school bus. They can be having separation anxiety. They can be nervous in school, at lunch. They can be having a really bad day. Somebody can hurt their feelings. A friend can hurt their feelings. They can be really mad. So our kids who are having anger issues, explosive issues, our oppositional defiant kids, our kids with explosive issues, they can do these breathing techniques for the same thing, because what it's doing is it's bringing them down a level. I like to tell my kids, if they've ever been to Hershey Park, or if they've ever been anywhere and seen a roller coaster, our goal is to keep you here. Our goal is not to have you blast off into space or blast up the hill like a roller coaster. And breathing helps you do that. So Breathe Like a Bear is one of those really, really great books. That just helps you be able to calm things down. Anxiety, anger, anything like that at all. Meditation daily is really helpful too. A lot of people think meditation has to be kind of sitting in your backyard, like, but that's not what it is. Meditation is 10 to 15 minutes a day that our kid finds something that brings them happiness and joy. I have a lot of patients who swing in the backyard. That's their meditation. It calms them down. It centers them. It's rhythmic. It's calming. It gives them mental space to be able to think and work through things. And that's what meditation does. It can be a nice warm bath. It can be digging in the dirt, planting a flower, playing with their puppy. It can be, laying down and listening to music. It can be watching a calming light in their room, anything like that at all that just helps them disconnect and be able to have that safe time and space to decompress a little bit is meditation. Exercise. So we have to get our kids outside. They need sunshine on their skin. They need to be outside. One of the biggest things, and ironically enough, in this world of social media where we're all connected all the time, is that we have an increased sense of loneliness and isolation. Adults, but our kiddos are really suffering. And that's such a big cause of anxiety and depression and mood issues, is our kids just don't feel connected to anyone. So we got to get them outside. They need to have that vitamin D, sunshine on their skin, and they have to get moving. So exercise and diet are really directly linked to our mental health. The more sugar that's in our diet and the more sedentary we are, the more that we stay inside in our bedrooms, the worse that we feel. We have good feeling hormones that get released in our bodies, our endorphins, and exercise and movement brings those out. So your kid does not have to be an athlete. They don't have to play a sport. They don't have to be running around the block. Just anything that gets them out of their room, out into the sunshine, and gets them moving in the fresh air for 20 or 30 minutes a day is going to be really, really helpful for them. The other component of that is what we put in our bodies. The more sugar and the more processed foods in our bodies, the more that it actually affects the hormones in our brain, and it leads to increased anxieties and depressions. Singing is actually a proven way to stimulate the vagus nerve to help reduce that fight or flight response, to reduce stress. So singing it out. So let your kid, or you as the mom or dad or the adult in the house, sing it out. Let them turn up their music as loud as they want. Let them rock out, whatever it is, and let them sing it out. And that's actually a really, really good way. It's a good meditative way, and it's a really good way to actually calm them down, similar to a breathing technique. Massage is another way. I know that might sound a little crazy and maybe even a little luxurious, but massage is actually a really good way. And that takes a lot of trust and a fair degree of intimacy. If you have that kind of relationship with your kiddo, that they're comfortable with touch, any just kind of gentle or light touch or massage is also a really good calming way. And when we talk about sensory issues to help calm down, massage goes into that as well. Laughing is actually a huge, huge stress release. And laughing has actually been proven to decrease our depression symptoms and our anxiety symptoms. So anything that makes us laugh, especially if it's in connection with other people. So this goes along with getting our kids out of their room, not letting our kids sit down in the basement, not letting our kids sit in their rooms all day or all weekend long. That they have to get out and be connected with others. They have to have a purpose. They have to have something that brings them joy, happiness, and a sense of self, be a part of something bigger than themselves. And it can be a part of anything. It can be joining a book club. It can be just joining a group of other people that they find their people and their sense of purpose. It can be youth group at church. It can be 4-H club. It can be, anything. We have so many things in our area. We have things through the Arts Council, so many things through our library system, but just something that provides a connection with others. So all of these things help regulate and calm our nervous system. And that's the goal for our kids. Our goal is to keep our kids regulated and teach them that emotional self-regulation and how to be able to calm themselves down. Another really good thing to do, and this is appropriate for all ages, is calm boxes or sensory boxes, which basically these are objects that calm our kids down, and they are going to help you make these calm boxes because it's individual. Like what makes me feel calm is going to be different to what helps you feel calm and happy, and what makes your kiddo feel calm and happy. But you want to keep it very sensory based. So the first thing is going to be smells. Lavender is a proven calming smell. For kids who maybe have divorced parents, or parents who are two household parents, or parents with custody issues, or we have custody issues in the family, kiddos who are foster families or adopted kids, anywhere where there's some disconnect from some of their families, or family transition, family disruptions, the smells can be really, really helpful. I've had patients who love their mom or their dad's perfumes or colognes, or a favorite smell from one home. And when they are going to the other home, they take that smell with them. And a calm box can be a shoe box. It can be a cardboard box. It can be a pencil case, a cosmetic bag. It can be anything like that at all. Just enough that a duffel bag, anything that you can put these objects in, they're going to help your kid be able to calm and make them feel better. Like I said, lots of different situations. And this is really good for our kids and adolescents who have undergone traumas, whether it's through an abusive situation or it's through home transitions or home disruptions. So the smells are really, really big. Like I said, lavender, a favorite smell, even if it's a smell of chocolate, or a favorite perfume or cologne that makes them feel safe and comfortable. Touch is the next big thing. So it can be stress balls, stress putty, like Aaron's makes like a stress or a think putty, slime, the poppets, the fidgets, anything like that is sensory. And again, that's so individual for each child, of which kind of helps them calm down and self-regulate. Sound is another big one. So any kind of music, any kind of calming white noise, anything like that for sound. I've had patients who've enjoyed the sound of wind chimes. So little wind chimes help calm them down. Anything like that at all, that sound that helps. Sight is another big one. So any kind of calming art or pictures from a happy place. The beach, again, kids who've endured trauma, or having home disruptions, switching places from grandparents to parents' houses, foster kids. It may be a picture of a parent, a loved one. It may be a picture of their favorite pet. It might be a picture of their favorite place, their bed, anything like that at all. So really just honing into that sensory for them, the smell, the touch, the sound, and the sight. Kind of going along with that, and this is more for kids who are having issues with maybe more oppositional defiance, or our kids who are having a lot of explosive anger issues, or just trouble really calming themselves down. You can have a calm corner, which is basically a designated safe space in your home or in your area that allows your kiddo to decompress in a safe and appropriate way. Examples of that can be a big pillow, even one of those big marshmallow pets or squashmallow pets they have now, where a kiddo can scream into it, or punch it, or hit on it. I've had kids who we've created spaces with footprints on the floor, and they're allowed to stomp on the footprints, or putting little markers on the floor, and that's what they're allowed to stomp on. And that helps them work through their feelings and if their anger, and gives them an appropriate place to kind of work through that and let that out. It's basically a safe place to allow their emotions to be felt and acknowledged and validated. And again, that goes into that modeling that we do for our kids, especially our kids who are having a lot of trouble controlling their emotions, is allowing them to let those feelings out in a safe, appropriate way, validating those feelings, and then being able to sit down and talk to them about it, about what they're feeling. So for our kids who are having some troubles with their emotions and anger or explosiveness, or just not really sure what they're feeling and why they're acting this way, is correlating it to colors. So red, you're feeling mad, you're red today. You're feeling sad, you're blue. You can kind of correlate colors to how they're feeling, and you can even have feelings charts, and sometimes that really helps too. So one of the big things that I think is really important with my patients of all ages is, what do we do to help our kids when they're really in a bad place? I like to do a 3-step coping response, and I like to tell my patients to think back when we taught them, if they were on fire, they stopped, dropped, and rolled. It was a simple 3-step process that anybody can rattle off if asked. What do you do if you're on fire? You stop, drop, and roll. So it's a 3-step process that we work through with our kids for them to be able to automatically stop, drop, and roll, to keep them from spinning out if they're in a bad, dark place. If they're in a place where they're seeming like they're going to have an anxiety attack, they're going to have a panic attack, they feel like they're going to flip out because they're so angry and they're just seeing red, and the breathing and the counting backwards isn't helping them. What can they do? What are 3 things they can do? What's their stop, drop, and roll? Step 1 can be, I'm going to breathe. Step 2 can be, I'm going to listen to music. Step 3, I'm going to talk to my best friend. For somebody who's maybe feeling really, really anxious and feels like they're starting to have an anxiety attack or panic attack, what is step 1? I'm going to breathe. What is step 2? I'm going to reach out to my best friend. What is step 3? I'm going to get on my app on my phone. Those 3 steps are going to look different for every kid and different for what they're struggling with and what they're going through. But it's just really, really important for our kids to understand that they have a sense of control in this, that this is not something that they have to feel that is happening only to them, or that they're alone in this and there's nothing they can do about it. So really kind of helping them have a sense of control and how they can cope with what they're feeling and what they're going through is really helpful. Like I said, it's really helpful for our kids who have a lot of depression and mood issues. If they're getting to a really dark place that they're afraid they're going to hurt themselves, okay, great, you're at that spot. Tell me, what's step 1? What's your stop? What's your drop? What's your roll? I want to hear it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. So they know when they get to that place, this is what they can do. And these are the steps to keep them safe. For anxiety kids, when they're starting to get anxious or starting to panic, what's your stop? What's your drop? What's your roll? What are you going to do? Who are you reaching out to? What are we doing? Step 1 is breathing. If breathing's not working, what are we moving on to? Step 2 is music. Music's not working. What are we moving on to? What is step 3? So that's a really important thing. And it's actually an agreement that I usually have with my patients. It's kind of their homework to figure that out, to talk to their counselors or therapists about it, to talk to me about it, to talk to their family, their adults about it, and come up with those 3 steps, because they're really, really important to have those 3 steps, to be able to come back to when they're either getting to that spot where they're ready to spin out. I talk a lot about our sphere of influence. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about that before, but I like to talk a lot about our sphere of influence. So our sphere of influence, I usually hold up my hand like the size of a squishy ball. This is our sphere of influence. It's not very big. Our sphere of influence, what's on the inside of our sphere of influence, is what we can control. These are the things we can control, and it's not a lot. We cannot control a lot in our lives. We cannot control anything on the outside of our sphere of influence. So what are the things that we can control? What can our kids control? They can control that they get out of bed every morning. They can control that they sit up and their feet hit the floor. And sometimes that's the victory. The fact that we sat up, we put our feet down, and we got out of bed is a victory. We went to school. We got on the bus. We went to school. We got off the bus and went into school. How we treat others. Those are all things in our sphere of influence. Things we cannot control. We can't control if we like our teacher. We can't control if they gave us a pop quiz. We can't control if we're mad at our mom or our dad. We can't control if our parents are divorced. We can't control if our parents hate each other. We can't control the grown-up drama that's in our kids' lives. Our kids can't control the grown-up drama that's in their lives. Kids can't control if they're bullied, and kids can't control their friends. They can't control if one day our best friend is there and the next day they're not our friend anymore. We can't control, our kids can't control violence or school shootings. They can't control so many things. They can't control what is out there on social media and societal norms. But they can control their responses to these unpleasant things. They can control their responses to these stressors. And this is what the coping is doing. That's what the CBT is for. It's to help them learn that they can control what's inside their sphere of influences. And even though it seems really unfair, and I tell a lot of my patients this all the time, that it really, really sucks. And it's not fair. It's not fair that some kids just seem like they get dealt with so much stuff. You know, they may get dealt a really bad hand with family drama, you know, their mom or their dad, or they live with grandparents, or they're in the foster system, or they've been abused, they've had trauma. They can't control that. And it's so unfair that some kids seem to really get a bad deck of cards. They can't control that they go to school and they don't like their teachers, or something was unfair that day, or they're bullied because of who they're perceived to be, or who they are. Unfortunately, we can never, we can't change bullies. Bullies are always going to be around, and I'm not excusing or justifying their behavior. But what I like to have our kids realize is that they aren't powerless. I want kids to learn to have a good sense of their self through this process and these things we've been talking about. And part of what's in their sphere of influence, what they can control, is they can control putting on a good armor and realizing that bullies bully because that's their issue. It's not them. And one of the biggest things that our kids can do, and we can help our kids do, is find their people. We all have our people. We all have somebody like us. You know, kids that like art, or kids who like football, or kids who like Dungeons and Dragons, or kids who love to read bookwork, you know, Harry Potter books, or kids who like to read some other series. Everybody has a person out there. Everybody can find their people. We just kind of have to help our kids find them. And that's one of those big things for helping connect, and things that we can help our kids realize in their sphere of influence. And that's really helpful when we have kids who are on the opposing ends of bullies and the phenomenon known as mean girl drama. Like I said, I have 4 kids, so I've been through this as a mom, and I will continue to go through this as a mom. So I live through this at home as well as in the office on a daily basis. And unfortunately, these issues aren't going away. And the social media impact on our kids is pretty intense. Like I said, girls start to have their self-worth plummet around age 8. They're starting to have body dysmorphia, where they don't like the way their bodies look, comparing themselves to what other kids look like on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram or whatever they're seeing. And just really having our kids realize that they have this control in their sphere of influence and what they can do is really huge. I also, some of my teenagers don't love this, but I have kids of all ages also do self-affirmations every day. They have to come up with at least one thing every day that they say to themselves in the mirror that they like about themselves that day, or something that's positive. And it can be any attribute. It can be that today my hair looks really nice, or today I look really good in these clothes. Or it can be, wow, today I was really nice to that person on the bus, or today I was really smart. I got an A on my test, or I got a C on my test. I didn't fail my test. I was really respectful today. I helped somebody in the hallway. It can be anything. But that daily self-affirmation to really help build themselves up and to realize that they are valued and that they are important, and that they belong here, is one of those things inside their sphere of influence that they can control and start working on their self-worth. And that's something we can do to help them build that up. There's a lot of other issues that are impacting our kids right now. Having a safe place Gender identity issues are a really big thing right now. Obviously, if a kid's going through gender identity issues, they're going to have a higher risk of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, harm, things like that. So it's really important that we create and have a safe place for our kids. Our PEDS office is an Adams County safe place. That just means that we make that promise that we are a safe place for all of our patients. No matter what they're going through, we are a safe place for our kids and our adolescents in our community to come talk to us about anything that they may be feeling or going through. The bullying is another big thing. Your kid may or may not be the bully, or they may be on the end of getting bullied. Either way, there's something going on there with that child that needs to be heard and addressed. And working with our kids through these processes that we're talking about is going to be really important. And that's where that listening and being patient and really hearing what they have to say is so important, and not dismissing them. Maybe as a kid, we ourselves as adults were bullied. And so we just tell our kids, you know what, it's just part of middle school or high school. You got to get through it. Whereas that there is a grain of truth to that. The things that our kids are going through are just a lot more intense for them. And there's, especially with all the cyberbullying and social media impact that they have, it's just so different. So just really having a safe place for our kids is really important. So to counseling now. Why is counseling so difficult to get into? And it is. We have waits of up to 9 months in our area. And even as a parent, I have no pull to get my kids into counseling any faster than anyone else. If I could create any specialty in the world, it would be counselors and psychiatrists. But I don't have a magic wand to create them. So what can we do? What can we do to help our kids who desperately need to get into counseling, but there's just no counseling to be found? What do we do? So the first thing that I tell my patients is counseling is really important, is so important. And it's a tool in your toolbox. It's a great resource to have. But even if you have the world's best counselor and you have that counselor in your back pocket every single day, at the end of the day, it's still so much of this work that we've been talking about and learning these cognitive behavioral therapy methods, the breathing, the meditation, talking about your sphere of influence. Those are the things that are going to help our kids so much in addition to the counseling. So counseling is absolutely so important and so valuable. But I don't want parents thinking that their kids are out of luck and can't be helped if they can't get in to see a counselor, because all of these things that we're talking about right now, these are also the things that really help and make a huge difference with our kids. So local counselors, we have a lot of them, but not enough of them. And we do have long waits. Care Solace is actually a care management. They help families get into counseling, basically is what it is, and help you find a good fit. So that's a good thing. And the best thing I can tell parents, and I understand it's frustrating, is to keep trying. Our counseling offices are trying to do the best they can. There's just not enough of them. Don't doubt your impact and your importance with a kid in your life, whether it's your own kid or your teacher, or no matter what role you have in a kid's life, but just one listening and caring adult makes a difference for a kid. So what are we looking for when you're looking at your kids and you're not really quite sure, where do we fall on this spectrum? Is my kid okay? Are we doing all right here? Or do I need to be really worried and concerned? And oh my gosh, I called all the counselors in the area and no one's getting back to me, or they're telling me that I have like a 5-month wait. What do I do? So positive signs that we're looking for in our kids is if they have at least one supportive peer or friend. They just need one good supportive peer or friend, and finding our people. That's why it's so important, especially as we get out of elementary school in those middle school and high school years where kids always feel like they're maybe the oddball out. I always tell my kids, you got to find your people. We all have them. And it can be really hard to find our people. It can be really hard to find our where we fit and where we fit in. And everyone's trying to fit in. Everyone's trying to jockey for a position. And that's how bullying arises. That's how the mean girl drama arises. But our kids who maybe feel like they just don't fit and haven't found their people, that it's so important to remind them that you are going to find your people. Your people are out there. We got to find them for you. And even if it's just one or two of them where they have something they can connect with, something and who can sit and listen to them outreach, is really, really important. And again, I just really encourage us as adults to look into places we can help our kids. It doesn't have to be drama, community theater, the musical at school, anything like that, 4-H club, anything at all, book clubs that help get our kids in and find their people. Having goals and plans on talking about the future is really, really important. So if we have a kiddo that's talking about what they want to do this summer, they're excited to go do anything at all, that's encouraging and that's really promising. So what are our warning signs? The loss of these things. If we don't have any friends or peers, we start not coming out of our rooms. We don't have our people. We don't have our like-minded people. We don't have our goals or future plans. Those things that maybe we seemed so excited about, we're not excited about anymore. We can't verbalize what we want to do next week or next month or our summer plans. Those are the warning signs for us as adults that we need to maybe kick it up a notch and start talking about if we need to talk to crisis or get in to see, your family doctor, whether it's us at the peds office or it's family practice or family first or wherever you live, to get in to see your doctor at that point for sure. Self-harm is another real problem with our adolescents. And what is self-harm? Self-harm, and why do our kids do it? So self-harm is a release. It's a way of releasing our anxiety and our sadness. And it tends to be cutting or burning. So it tends to be superficial. Cutting is different than something that tends to take someone's life. So cutting or superficial cutting or superficial burning tends to happen on the lower forearms, the upper thighs, and the abdomen, which tend to be spots that can be easily covered. But it's a release of anxiety and sadness. And that's one of the big things for our kids, where you're getting into a danger zone here with kids, where we need to really talk about getting them in to see their doctor if they haven't already been there, or getting into crisis. So where do we go for crisis? What do you do as the mom, the dad, the adult in your kid's life if you've done all of the stuff we're talking about, and your kiddo is just, they're sinking deeper and deeper and you're not able to help get them out? Where do we go from here? We go to crisis. All of our emergency departments, Hanover Hospital, Gettysburg Hospital, Chambersburg Hospital, they all have crisis departments that are there with crisis workers who can help. And we have crisis hotlines as well. I do want to be able to put them up in the chat for you, but there's a national crisis hotline. It's 1-800-273-8255. And the big one that I want to mention to you as well is the Trevor Project or Trevor Lifeline. And that one's a text or phone one as well. And that's a really good one that's geared more towards our LGBTQ plus kiddos, but it's really, really good for our kiddos who are in a spot that need someone to talk to there as well. Obviously 911 also can always connect you to crisis. Okay. But the national crisis hotline is the 1-800-273-8255. Our WellSpan crisis number, which is the county-wide number, is 717-851-5320. And I always recommend that people have those plugged into their phone. And I actually always make my patients plug them into their phone as well. They're always a confidential freeway 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to get a hold of somebody if we're in that spot where we really need help and we need it now. Another book that I wanted to show you guys, and this is geared more towards generally our female kiddos. It's called NFF or NRF, which is Best Friend Forever or Not Really Friend. It's Girls Guide to Happy Friendships. So this is a workbook that you can work through that just really helps kids that elementary to middle school age really be able to kind of work through some of this mean girl drama and horizontal girl to girl drama. And I find that this has been really helpful too. Kind of goes in that CBT workbook phase. So that's kind of what I've got. So I was going to open it up for some questions now. I apologize. I'm not really sure how to do that. Chat here. Oh, thank you. You put that in there. But if you have any questions for me or anything you want to talk about or discuss, please type it in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or anything at all.
Renee, can you put the Trevor Project number up or let me know and I'll type it?
Yes, I can put it in right now. Okay, so one of the questions that I have is, how do I get my daughter to stop cutting? So that is a really great question. I apologize. I'm trying to get out of the chat. Okay. So how do I get my daughter to stop cutting? So knowing that cutting is a release of anxiety and sadness, the kids that tend to be the ones who are cutting are kids who suffer from anxiety and depression. One of the things I would definitely suggest as one of the tools in the toolbox is the app that I told you about. The Calm Harm app. It's specifically geared towards adolescents who self-harm and cut. Counseling is another thing that's going to be really helpful there. And when I have patients in my office that are self-harming, whether it's cutting or burning, I really suggest putting the app on the phone. And then that stop, drop, and roll, that 1, 2, and 3. This is something that's so helpful for our kids who self-harm, because they're cutting because they're to that moment where they have no other way, or they feel like they have no other way of releasing that anxiety or that sadness. So they self-harm. So that stop, drop, and roll, that 1, 2, and 3 is really, really important there. So I usually sit and I say, okay, you're at this moment where you're sitting on your bed, you're sitting in your room, and you're feeling anxious, you're feeling so sad, and you feel like you want to cut. Tell me what you can do first before you cut. What are you going to do? And that's kind of that, where you're giving them pause, you're listening, you're being patient, but also firm that, hey, listen, this is a plan. We're in this together. Cutting is not a viable option for our anxiety or our sadness. So what are we going to do here? And again, the 1, 2, and 3, the stop, drop, and roll are different for everybody. But for example, step 1 can be, I listen to music. Step 2 can be, I reach out to my best friend. Step 3 can be, these didn't work, I'm getting on the app, or I'm texting the crisis line, or I'm talking to my mom, or something like that. But it's really having that 1, 2, and 3. And it is that retraining. And that's that core of that CBT train. That's sort of it at its core is, okay, hey, I feel like I want to cut because I'm so stressed, or I'm so sad, or I feel so worthless right now. What am I going to do instead? What's number 1 on the list? What am I doing? Okay, I listen to music, that's not working. What am I doing for number 2? Oh, I still feel like I want to cut, and I still feel in a dark place. What's my step 3? And then, you at that point, if we still have someone who's still really self-harming cutting, we really need to make sure that we're into, and if you're not already in counseling, that's a point where we really probably either need to get right in to see your doctor, or you need to get right in to see crisis. Are there any herbal supplements that help? So herbal supplements. I'm a big fan of anything that helps you. So herbal supplements, I just say be really careful, because they're not always regulated, and they can interfere with other medications, such as SSRIs, which are our Zolofts or Lexapros, our Prozacs, if your kid is on a medication at all. They can interfere with birth control pills. They can cause blood clotting, things like that. So I say just be careful with herbal supplements. One of the things that we all lack is vitamin D. Sometimes having vitamin D and magnesium helps our mood disorders for sure. I know that there's a lot of things out there like St. John's wort, things like that. You just have to be really cautious, because like I said, they can decrease your clotting factors and things like that could potentially cause problems in interactions. So if you're considering any herbal supplements, I just usually suggest running it past the pharmacist or your doc, just to make sure it's not going to interact with something, or you don't have a health condition that you shouldn't take a certain supplement. Vitamin D and magnesium, though, across the board are always a good idea. Husband thinks our daughter who is cutting is being dramatic. Any advice? So cutting is not dramatic. It's a common misconception. So your husband is definitely not alone in thinking that. And it's something that I hear a lot from family members that they think their kiddo is just being dramatic because they're cutting. Whereas in reality, cutting, like I said, is that release of anxiety and sadness. So advice in trying to kind of pull your husband over on the side of thinking and seeing that your daughter actually has something going on that is significant would be to provide him resources. There's a lot of resources out there that you can show him that are scientifically based, that are sound, versus just being dramatic. Kind of the danger in that is sort of kind of what we talked about at first, is really allowing your kid to talk and say what's going on and bothering them and not dismissing that. And as adults, sometimes we really forget what it was like to be a kid. We forget what it was like to be in middle school. We forget what it felt like to maybe walk into a crowded lunchroom and not have a seat at a table. We forget what it felt like to be bullied or left out, or, anything, because what our kids are feeling should be validated. And it's not for us to say, that's no big deal, you just have to get over it. Especially if our kids are already showing us signs that they're anxious and they're sad and they're depressed. And the cutting is the physical evidence of that. That's how they're releasing their feelings. So I would say the best thing is to work with your daughter and to talk with her and be really open and really listen to her, even if you're her safe person. And if your husband's not quite on board with that yet, to let her know she has you as a safe person to talk to, and that you validate what she's feeling and that you take it seriously. Definitely talk to your provider. If she's in counseling, and I know it's so easy for me to say, get in counseling, because I know how hard right now it is to get into counseling. So the first thing to do would be to talk to your daughter and just say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm a safe place for you. Let's talk about this. What's going on? Is it sadness? Is it stress? Is it anxiety? And just really let her know you're a safe place, that you care about her, that it's important. You validate what she's thinking, what she's feeling. And most importantly, that you're a safe space for her. She can come talk to you, and then really talk to her about those steps. Like, okay, what are you feeling before you want to cut? What's happening? What's happening in your brain? How are you feeling? How's your heart feeling? What's heavy? And then really try and work with her with those steps, the stop, drop, and roll. Even if you can just get one step out of her initially. But as far as getting your husband on board with seeing that goes along with that anxiety and depression, and that's a release for her. Whatever his best learning method is. If it's, you can show him this recording if you'd like to. You can point him in the direction of the CDC, any, American Psychological Association. PAStart.org is actually really good. They actually have a really good flyer. That's how do I talk to my teen about mental health? Start with the facts. There's a QR code, but PAStart.org is actually really good. And again, it's just, be ready to listen, look for your moment. But please always remember that you have a lot of resources in the community. Your provider is one of them. And pulling dad into that conversation, even if it's with a provider or therapist or counselor, is also really helpful. What advice do you have for parents of young children to de-escalate before getting really frustrated? So that's a big one. So one of the biggest things with little kiddos, even big kiddos, to teach them to de-escalate before getting really frustrated. So kids go through those developmental stages where they're learning to be independent, but they have zero emotional regulation. They throw their temper tantrums. Kids kind of can hit those within a variety of ages, starting at about 12 to 18 months, up through those early elementary school years. And some of our older teens are kind of re-entering that stage as well. But that's where, if you can kind of start to correlate a color with a feeling, oh, you're feeling red, what can we do? And that's sometimes where you can teach a kid to take a nice breath, or count to 5, or count to 3, or count backwards. Having that sort of like safe corner for them, that decompression corner where they're allowed to be really mad and frustrated. And they can scream into a pillow, or they can stomp on the stompy pads, or stomp on the bugs that you draw on the floor for them. Obviously, if you're in the middle of Walmart and your kid's getting ready to have a meltdown because you said, no, you can't have that candy right now, you're not going to have a calm corner or a pillow to scream into. And I've been there with my kids in the middle of Walmart when I say no. So that's kind of whenever remember we talked about this. I understand you're mad. I understand you're frustrated. You're not getting your way right now. But remember we talked about it. We're going to count to 5 and let's see if that makes us feel better. But that's a really, really great question. And it's a really big thing in helping our kids learn to really cope with their feelings and emotions and emotional self-regulation. That's the advice I give to my patients a lot, and I use it with my own kids too, because we've all been there. We've all been in those places where you're not in the confines of your home, where you can easily set boundaries for your kiddo, and they flip out, and you're, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this kid flipping out in the middle of Walmart right now? So even little kids, 3 and 4-year-olds, you can even start learning to teach them to take breaths, or counting backwards, or counting up, or we're going to be, you can relate it to an animal, like we're going to breathe like an elephant, or if they have a fun animal, or, we're going to breathe in our hot chocolate right now. I know you're sad. I know you're mad. You didn't get your way. But even like the hot chocolate breath goes a long way with little kids, or blowing a balloon. That's another good breath too. It's easy to make it all your kid's problem or fault. How do we make the support more for the whole family? That's a great question. It is definitely easy to make it all of our kids' problem or fault. And probably the truth of the matter is that a lot of it stems from outside their sphere of influence. A lot of times kids are struggling because it's something that's happening to them, whether it's family dysfunction, it's bullying in school, anxiety wise, just things that are going on in the world that just seem so out of control for them. How do we make this support more for the whole family? Open communication, dialogue, talking about it. And I will say, I think that's one of the really good things right now. I sometimes 60% of my day may be in the pediatrician's office, may not be dealing with strep throats or earaches. It may be dealing with mental health problems for my patients. And I, yes, there's more of it, but I also think that there's a much bigger dialogue going on where we're bringing it out into the open. And I always applaud the parents, the grownups, and the kids who are coming in to talk about it, because it's not an easy thing to talk about. So say the number one thing to do to support for the whole family is to normalize our mental health, just like we normalize if we have strep throat or an ear infection. That this is not something that's the kid's problem or fault. We have genetics, we have brain chemistry, and then outside of that, these other things that are triggering and causing our kids to just really be more anxious and depressed right now. So just having that open dialogue in the family home, or with your relatives, or friends, or whoever the support system is that you count as your family, to just have that open discussion, dialogue, to destigmatize it, so that your kid doesn't think that they're alone, to not be embarrassed, to not be ashamed, so that they don't feel like they're dismissed. And there's actually some really good family supports out there right now. Obviously there's family counseling, but our RSG in our area in Adams County and York County is really good. They are doing a lot for family counseling and behavior issues. And I'm not sure, I'm hoping I'm answering your question right. And I think a lot more community resources right now, like including the Children's Advocacy Center. I know our Collaborate for Youth, United Way, Ready to Learn, Head Start programs, our schools with their school assistance programs, like they're bringing a lot more of this into the forefront, but just having open, honest, and supportive conversation, dialogue, so that our kids feel supported and that it's not their fault, and that we as grownups can understand and realize that we also do play a part in what they're dealing with. Sometimes we may be the trigger for them, and that's a hard truth to understand. But I know as a parent, some days I don't make my kids' lives easier. I may add to their stress and anxiety because I'm having a bad day. And there may be days that I do not have the emotional self-regulation that I should have for a grown-up, because maybe I had a bad day or I'm tired, things like that. But just being able to have that open conversation, I'm having a bad day and I'm really sorry, or I'm sorry that I made that worse for you. I'm sorry you're going through that right now. I'm sorry you're having this trouble with your friends or your boyfriend, or that you're worried about this, or you're sad, or I'm sorry you don't feel like you fit in school right now, and just having that conversation with them and knowing that they're loved and supported. And then as the grown up in their life, making sure you have that support. So if you get that support from your partner or your spouse or your best friend or a counselor or a pastor or coworkers, but we as adults need the support or we can't support our kids. Is there any other questions or questions that I could have answered better for you guys?
I don't
Please.
see any more questions. Is there anything you'd like to say and wrap up?
I appreciate everybody that joined me. Thank you. And I'm, if there's anything else, if anyone else has any suggestions or comments, I'm obviously always happy to have them. But thank you so much for listening. And I hope that this provided some useful information.
Absolutely. Thank you, Renee. That was incredibly informative and helpful. I know as a parent myself, I will definitely take some of these suggestions and put them into practice. We appreciate your time that you took to put this together and to answer all the questions. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. To our audience, thank you for your time and your great questions. We hope that you've learned some new mental health coping strategies for you and the children and teens in your life. A recording of this webinar will be available on the Adams County Children's Advocacy Center Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And we hope that you'll visit our website, kidsagaincac.org, for more resources, information, events, and support groups. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you so much.
Bye.